This is Lyle Blackburn, and you're listening to the Cryptid Creatures podcast with Brian and Todd.
Its skin was dark, very dark, leathery looking. Its face was flattened. Its nose was broad. Its eyes were sunken. It looked like it had a brow ridge line that was noticeable. Not much hair on its face. I could see its ears, and they were human-like ears that were close to the head. And then lots of hair that was mangy looking.
This is the Cryptid Creatures Show. I am Brian, and with me as always is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, my friend, we're going to have a good weekend coming up. We know we're going to the Monster Fest show in Canton, Ohio.
We are. I'm excited.
Saturday. Actually, we leave tomorrow. Love going to these shows. So if you guys out there listening can make it to any Bigfoot conferences, stuff that you're into like that,
they're so
get
fun.
up to one. Yeah, they're a good time.
Yeah, and we love to meet you guys and talk to you and listen to your stories. And
yeah, absolutely.
And it's just a good time.
So tonight's guest is Robyn. Robyn is from Washington
Pacific
State.
Northwest.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she's seen some strange things, encountered some things.
She has.
It's been kind of a lifelong thing for her. So we're going to get her on and listen to what she's got to say. What do you say?
I know. I'm excited to hear it. Let's get her. All right, Robyn. Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm first of all glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me to do this. Given me a lot to think about, and it's been fun revisiting some of those memories that began in my childhood in regard to Sasquatch. I grew up in Eastern Washington, Spokane, Washington, to be exact. And I always knew that Bigfoot existed, Sasquatch. You know, I don't remember what my dad called it, but he was a hunter, and he used to tell stories about things in the woods that made noise and smelled bad. And now that I know what I know now, I knew what that was. So he used to go hunting when we were kids. He was a deer hunter, and we always had meat in the freezer. So he used to, outside of Spokane, stuttering and stammering here, the name of the area was called Starvation. And it is just above Colville, which all of that means about 2 hours north of Spokane. That's where he used to go hunting. And every year he and his best buddies would go, and he'd always take a couple of bales of hay. And I always thought it was odd that he didn't take straw, but he chose to take hay. And one day he explained to us, well, actually to his friends, I was sitting under the dining room table. So imagine a little girl under the dining room table while Dad's playing poker with his buddies, listening to things that she probably shouldn't hear, but they didn't know I was there. So it was quite an education. And one day they were talking about this particular event. They had gone hunting. Dad had taken the hay. He always took 2 bales of hay. He spread them out thickly on the ground to create a nice insulation for his canvas bottom tent, and would stay there during the week that they were gone hunting, and then leave all of that behind, knowing that it was food for the animals. And one day they came back from a hunting trip, and his tent was, or not the trip, but from being out in the woods hunting, and his tent was tipped, and all of that feed, all of that hay was gone. And he was talking about some foul smell in the camp. They were trying to figure out what it was that had come in and taken that. So as I've begun to say more and more often, now that I know what I know now, I suspect that that was probably a Sasquatch. Another childhood memory, we would go to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, to the lake every summer for a special family picnic. And we were on our way there one year, and there was a gypsy circus sideshow that had pulled over just a couple of cars on the side of the road near State Line. That's Post Falls, Idaho. And we saw a sign that said, hairy man, hairy something, mummy inside. And I thought that was so odd, and I loved odd things, and I begged Daddy to stop, but he wouldn't because Mom thought that was gross, so we kept going. The next year, before we left on this trip, I still remembered that, and I begged my dad, please, can we stop if it's there again? And it was. So we stopped, and we went in. Mom wouldn't go. She still thought it was gross, and she kept my little brother with her, but Dad and I went in, and it really was, if you can imagine any pictures you may have seen of a gypsy sideshow, gypsy circus. Let's date this, though. We're going to say 1964. And I was just a kid. But walking into that place, I had just a strange feeling. I knew I was going to see something wonderful. And my dad, he was just, his eyes just popped when he saw this. There was an animal, a taxidermied or mummified animal, laying in a glass case like you would see in an old museum with the wood-framed glass case. It was laying in there, and we walked around it, and I was like right eye level to the animal because of my height. I was just a child, and it was just fascinating to see this. It had human fingers and toes, and I didn't recognize anything else. It was really hairy, and its face was flat. It wasn't attractive. It was mummified. But I just remember watching my dad as he was walking around and listening to the sounds that he made, just And as we walked out, he thanked the guy that was running the sideshow and said, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that is, but it ain't no monkey. And so we'll end that little short story with now that I know what I know now. So use your imagination. What was that? Probably that same year we were huckleberry picking on Mount Spokane, another thing that my family loved to do. We had relatives visiting from California, and we were all up there picking berries around a big thicket of them that Dad used to go to every year. Dad and my brother David, little kid, littler than me, was on the other side of the thicket, and Mom and I and my baby sister and our relatives were on the other side. When all of a sudden we heard Dad holler across the thicket, get to the car, and he came crashing around the side of that with my little brother tucked under his arm, and he looked like he'd seen, well, now that I know what I know now. And he hollered at us to get in the car. We did. We jumped in the car. He took off like on a gravel road, kicking up dust. His brother and my cousins were in the car behind us, and my aunt was yelling because she couldn't find her little dog, and Dad was just, get in the car, let's go, we'll find the dog later. And so we tore off down the gravel road, and we got about 1.5 miles down, I suppose. We'd been on the road for a little while, and Dad pulled over because he said, I don't remember his exact words, but I probably shouldn't repeat them if I could. And he saw this little dog, their dog, sitting on the side of the road, 1.5 miles to 2 miles away from where we had just left, as fast as one can drive on a gravel road, I would suppose. And they were so excited. It was their dog. There it was at the side of the road. We had not seen another car. There had been no other people that we saw. How did that little dog get that far and to sit at the side of the road? Just like that. And when they picked him up, they said he smelled like he needed a bath. So that's all I know about that. But it's enough to make you go, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how that little dog made it that far.
I don't know, but my inner child wants to believe that Bigfoot is a friend of the forest, and one of them took that little dog there, set him right back down. And I think I'm going to hold on to that thought because it resonates with me.
Yep, I think I will too. It's a good thought.
Yeah, thank you. And, I have to stop and say here that I'm not sure I understand all I think I know about this, but I have been listening to stories about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and the hairy man and all the wonderful things that we want to call him. I think of him as an older brother almost now because of what I know now. But let's fast forward, 1974. By then I'd moved, a grown-up girl, moved to California. I was living in San Francisco. But being that whizzy girl that my dad had raised me to be, I very often needed to get the heck out of Dodge and we'd go up to Yosemite. And so my best friend Colleen and I drove down to Yosemite in the middle of the night, really, and got there just about dawn. It was a Memorial weekend. I think it was 1974, close enough. we got the last campsite and set up our little camp. We weren't even going to have a tent. We just slept in we were planning to sleep in the back of our car. I'm going to date us even more. I was a barracuda. So anyway, we were wild and crazy. I think we were probably, you might call us hippie girls from San Francisco back then. And we had a great time. We camped. We met some friends there. We made friends there. We were going to stay just overnight just for a quick way to get out of town. And the other campers that we met talked us into staying for the entire weekend. We had a big storm. It rained hard. All the weekend warriors packed up and left. And so we were pretty much alone in the campground for the rest of the weekend. And there was 5 or 6 of us that were all together, people that were just camping, and we made friends and hung out. So we were sitting there the first night, and we had a big campfire, and we were having a great time. Some folks came in a small car, parked in a campground nearby, empty spot, took their cooler out of the back of their car and set it down on the ground and hopped in their car, and all got quiet. So it was clear they were just looking for a place to sleep. But a moment later, a bear came down out of the woods and smacked open that cooler like it was nothing, and stuck his snout in there and took half a gallon of milk, of all things, and then turned around and ran up into the woods. And we know this because we all had flashlights, and as soon as we heard that noise, it was like a high beam on that bear. So we showed him what he wanted, and he got what he wanted and left, and so did the people that were in that car very shortly. But right after that, we started hearing some noises up in the woods, and then we didn't hear much anymore. It just quieted down a little bit. It sounded like there were some campers way up high. I thought about where they might have been, and I remember not knowing if there was a trail up there. Or I was really sure there wasn't a service road, because I'd gotten to know that area pretty well over time. And so we played music. We played a song really loud on this guy's truck. He opened the doors and played this great song. And he said, "You guys got to hear this new song that just came out. I just got the album." Dating myself. It was called Dark Side of the Moon. So we were listening to Dark Side of the Moon as loud as this guy's new stereo system in his truck would blast it in an empty campground, just us. And when it was over, he turned it off. We shut the door, and we heard this commotion up on the hill. Cheering almost. But then it was chattering, and then we didn't know what it was. It was people talking, but we couldn't understand their language, and they were shouting and yelling, and I don't even know how to tell you any more than that, other than to say, now that I know what I know now, I wonder if that wasn't a Sasquatch family up there, either telling us they liked our music or to tell us to knock it off. Because at that time, we didn't know that we should have more respect for the forest animals. We were just kids at a campground having a good time. So the next day, we had to go get camp firewood, and we were just a bit off of a trail. Those are the rules. In Yosemite High Country, you can gather firewood from the ground, but you must be off trail a certain distance. And so we were following those rules. We crossed the Tuolumne River on foot. It was shallow, and picked up firewood in a thicket, or a thick area of woods. And through the woods, we could see a clearing on the other side. So we agreed to meet in the clearing and sort of synchronized our watches and spread out and picked up firewood. It wasn't long. It was only about 15 minutes or so. And once we got into the clearing, we all dropped our firewood and just stand there to get a drink of water. And we saw this helicopter go by. And it was like a Black Hawk, I guess, but it was older than that. A small, black, unmarked, no numbers, no letters anywhere, helicopter flying over Yosemite High Country on Memorial Weekend. What the heck is that doing there? I don't know. But we're following it, and as it dropped down, there were two, back up a minute here, there were two granite ridges. If you look at it from Google Earth right now, you could find, if you go to Tuolumne Meadows, in Yosemite, you can see that it looks like two giant boulders that come together in a dip in the middle. They're enormous, but from the ground they looked enormous to us, but still not that far away. And we saw the helicopter go up and over that. And as it was coming down, we saw a boulder, it was what I had been looking at, stand up and look the same way we were. What is that? And then it turned around and faced the granite ridge, ducked just a little bit, and stepped forward a few steps and disappeared behind. Maybe there was a cave up there, or it went around the side of the granite rock outcropping. I don't know, but 3 of the 5 of us that were there saw that, and I said, "Did you guys see that guy up on the ridge? Because what was that really? Because it's so big. It looks so big from this far away. That's not a man." And then I told them, I think that was a Bigfoot. And knowing what I knew then, I was pretty convinced. But and a couple of them agreed. 2 of them said, and one was my friend Colleen that was with me, had been looking at the ground, and she didn't see it. So that's too bad, because she and I are still friends today, and we were just talking about this the other day, and she remembers the event, but still disappointed that she didn't see anything. So that was 1974. So at that point, if anyone, a lay person like me, becomes a researcher, it may have started then, because when I got back to the city, I dropped off my camping gear and took the bus downtown and spent 4.5 hours in the San Francisco City Library. And I walked in with a mission. I asked for help the minute I got in the door. I told them what I was looking for, told them what I thought I saw. And so I had 3, maybe 4 people running around looking for information on Bigfoot, and we were scanning it, looking for habitat and all kinds of things like that. And so when I walked away from there, I was 100% sure that that's what I have seen. And since then, over the years, I keep running into people who are Sasquatch researchers who have had personal experiences and scary encounters with them. And I've always found it very interesting, and certainly got my attention, and was a place for me to tell my little stories. But nothing else happened until, I would say, well, probably 1998, 1999, something like that. I lived in the town of Sequim, Sequim. Some people will know where that is. And that is, in fact, where my mom still lives now. She's 95 years old and still living independently. But my husband and I, ex-husband now, he and I were on a motorcycle trip, just for a day trip around the peninsula, and we stopped at this little lake that I wanted to go check out. It was near Lake Crescent. I'm not going to give exact details, because I don't want people to go there trying to find what I think I understand that I saw or felt. But it was near Lake Crescent, and a very small lake off to the side of the road. Those who know the area will know exactly what I'm talking about. In the fall and winter, it's real easy to see the lake because it's surrounded by deciduous trees and the leaves are gone. In the summertime, it's just a peekaboo view, and it's a very small lake. So we went down there to check out the only campground that was on the edge of the lake, to see about maybe camping there in the future. And while we were standing there talking, we both were filled with a sense of confusion and a sense of dread. We felt as though we were being watched in a really creepy kind of way. And I felt it stronger, I guess. I brought it up first anyway, and I looked at him and said, do you feel like we're being watched? And he kind of thought about it for a minute. He goes, "Yeah, I don't like it. Let's get out of here." So we hopped on the bike and took off. So by the time we got out of that area, we were feeling dizzy. We ended up having to pull over just a mile or so down the road just to let our heads clear, have a drink of water, and go, "What the heck was that?" Well, we know that Bigfoot can do that, so perhaps that is what was in the woods. I don't know. There's some pretty big cougars around there and other predators that we probably don't know about. Could have been anything. But I think that that's what it was. So that will be up to you and your wonderful imagination to decide.
Yeah, I think you got hit with infrasound, maybe.
Yeah, I think so too. And I only just heard about infrasound within the last year or so. And that was in July last year. Well, can you guys have any questions before I go on? Because I'm really rattling off here.
No, you're doing great. I do have a question, though. The Bigfoot mummy, do you think that was a real Bigfoot? I
do. And, it's still in my head, and I think about it a lot. So whenever I start to talk about this or see anything that has to do with Bigfoot, I'm watching stuff all the time now. And like I said, you saw some of my posts. That's why you reached out and invited me to be on the show. And thank you again for that. But I think about it a lot. And so I think so. And, I reported this to a cryptozoologist that I think you guys will know, and some things that are going forward that I want to tell you about as well. Talk to him about, and Ken Gerhard.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And told it to him when I ran into him at the Texas Bigfoot conference last August. And I had talked to him on the phone previously to that to report something that I'd seen here in Texas. And all he did, he just looked at me for a minute and said, I have never heard that story. And all I could think was, I wonder where it is now. Who's got that thing?
Right.
Where
I was thinking that too. I doubt it's there. I seriously doubt.
Well, in my childhood memory, it was kind of a mangy thing anyway, and it's probably dust, but it's also maybe in somebody's basement in Post Falls, Idaho.
You never know.
I don't know. I did going back to that. As I said, I think about it often. And one day I decided to look for a place to ask if anybody had seen. And this was before I was aware that there were so many Bigfoot pages on Facebook and other social networking opportunities to reach out and ask people questions. But this, I just went to a Facebook Spokane history sort of thing and just typed the question, does anybody remember this? And gave the nutshell of what I had seen. And 2 people came forward and said they did. One person said he thought he did, and another person said he remembered the sign was there and he would beg his dad to take him and he wouldn't take him. So nobody else saw it. They just remember seeing it. Some people came back and said that they thought that was probably a place called the Snake Pit. That was a building that was full of oddities and lots of snakes in the same area. But that was not it. If anyone that's listening to that thinks that was it, it was before that. And also, from what I've discovered, was the last year that gypsy sideshow went through the area, that it was always front running to a private circus that came through. So if anyone wants to research that, maybe you can find out more. I don't know. But that's all I know about that.
I'm guessing that once the government or whoever got a hold that they were doing that probably took that from them if it was real. But who knows? Maybe it's still out there somewhere. I believe
that my dad believed it was real. And being a hunter and doing his own taxidermy work and all of that, I think he would know. He knew it wasn't a monkey.
Right.
And it was a hairy creature that looked like a teenage child covered in hair with a flat face. But then again, it was mummified, so I can't really. If I were an artist, if I had the talent that Sibylla Irwin has, I would be able to draw it for you and present, but I don't have that skill. So, in fact, I was just talking to her before we started and said that, and she goes, well, you could start.
Yes.
All good artists say that.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up a pencil and then what?
Mm-hmm.
So are you ready for me to fast forward to more closer?
Absolutely.
So I've had 2 more experiences since I moved to Texas 3 years ago. I came here from Oregon, where I had been living for a long time, with my daughter and her family. COVID kicked them out of Oregon because they lost their jobs, and we ended up in Austin. The kids asked me to come with them to be granny and nanny granny and help with the kids. And I was in a position where I could do that. And so here I am, and now we all live together and are regrouping and finding our way, making new friends, and deciding that we like it here. So that's good. I still miss the Northwest, and I'm planning a solo road trip out there. I'm leaving on June 21st. I'm going to drive all the way to Mount Hood. I have a cabin that has been gifted to me for the month of July on the edge of a place called Bigfoot Meadow. So now that I know what I know now, well, I'm going to be keeping my eyes and ears open.
Good for you.
Maybe when I come back, I'll have more to say.
We hope so.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we want to hear that story.
Okay. I can't wait for it to write itself.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, here we are in Texas. We're moving from one house to another. We're leasing homes, so we figure out what to do and where we want to be. And between houses, moving over to the new house, we're in Lakeway, Texas now, which is northwest Austin. And my daughter her name's Jenny, and she's, by the way, has a couple of her own Sasquatch stories to tell. She saw one on Vashon Island in Washington State, all from the road. And I have to say, everything that I'm talking about, everything that I've seen, I've not had a camera in my hands. It's been unexpected. But in the last couple of years, the things that I'm seeing are showing up. This is odd to me, showing up right after I think about them. So what does that mean? I feel like Bigfoot is an animal, but much more advanced than we are. I think they have, clearly, from all the evidence that has been gathered and the things that I've been reading and hearing on your podcast, there's so much we know that we don't know, that we have to believe in everything, especially after we've seen one for ourselves, because that it changes you. It changes the way you think about life. It changes the way you think about the things that you believed in your whole life, things that weren't supposed to be real suddenly are. And when you look at photographs, or you're driving along and you're looking into the woods, you look at them differently than you used to. Now, I used to have a boyfriend years ago who was a great hunter, loved hunting and fishing is what that means. And, well, so do I guess. But he would like to take me hunting with him because I had a good eye. He said I could, if we were road hunting, I could look into the woods and always see the game. I just would see, there they were. I would know that, and I would sort of feel that they were there, and then there they were. So,
You're listening to the Cryptid Creature Show with Todd and Brian. We're glad you're here, and we hope you're enjoying the show. Don't forget to visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net. By becoming a member, you'll get access to exclusive videos, members-only episodes, early, unedited, ad-free releases, and even a shout-out on an episode. Join us at www.cryptidcreatures.net, and thank you for supporting the show.
I didn't realize that was anything other than just the way I perceived things until lately. Perhaps it's a gift. I don't know. Maybe we can exercise that going forward and see if anything manifests. But anyway, so we're driving. We're between the old house and the new house, and we're driving on a country road, a farm to market road, they call them here. And only because it's a Texas hill country. It's beautiful, by the way. This is what helps me readjust from the Northwest because of the hills and the trees. It's nice. We came around a corner on a road that we were driving relatively slow on, a 2-lane, windy road with lots of low spots and signs that say flooding may occur, just to give you an idea. Thick forest, lots of oak trees in places where there were no trees. The land had been cleared, so there were ranches. There were cattle and there were horses, and the possibility of maybe a new development since this area is growing so well. And I told her, we were there to see the sunset, by the way. That's why we were taking this back road. And because there was a high point, we wanted to look out and see the sunset. That was a whole motivation for being on that road at that time. And I said, well, it's dusk. The deer are starting to move around, so I'm going to look into the trees to see what I can see, and I'll let you know if I see anything. You let me know when we get to the place where you want me to look out. And right just a minute or two after I said I'm going to look into the trees to see what I can see, I see. Well, I think I sent you a picture, a drawing. I don't know if you still have it, but yeah, I can send it to you. And that was a drawing that Sibylla did for me, from my memory and my daughter's memory, because she saw as well. And I'm going to say here, without a doubt, I saw Bigfoot. I'm not going to say I saw a possible one or soft shoe then anyway. I know what I saw, and it was close. And I saw the full body of the animal, and it was not as big as I maybe would expect them to be when I saw one up close, but still 7 feet, maybe at least. Maybe I've been by that area many times. We went back and forth trying to debunk what we saw, and we couldn't do it. And this was the one that I ended up reporting to Ken Gerhardt. So what we saw was the full body of the animal, and then it tucked behind a couple of trees and tried to get small, but it couldn't. It didn't cloak, or it didn't do any of those things I'm hearing that they can do to make themselves disappear. But what I saw the most, as I recall, because I looked at it, looked forward, and did a double take and looked back again. So I have two little snapshots in my memory of it. The full body moving, the head turned so it was looking at me, and then a step behind the trees, and I could see the fur on its shoulders, the hair on its shoulders moving with the movement of its muscles across its back. I saw its left elbow and its right hand, and it was very dark brown in color, almost blended in with the trees, and there it is right there. That is a drawing that Sibylla did for me, for Jenny and I. We went back and forth several times, Sibylla Irwin, and then we said, yes, that is what we saw. So that is what we saw. And we experienced a physical reaction as well, and we didn't talk about it, my daughter and I, for several weeks, actually. But as I was looking at this, I felt a tightness across my chest, a tingling. I had to wonder, am I having is this an anxiety thing? Am I having a heart attack? What is this? I don't know what this is. I've never felt it before. But it was uncomfortable, and it was startling, and it caused me to catch my breath. And then it sort of backed off as we got farther away from the animal. Was that infrasound, do you think?
It's hard to say. I don't know. It could have been.
Several weeks later, and I talked about this again. We were internalizing. We did go back together to try to debunk what we saw, but I hadn't mentioned it. And when I was talking to Sibylla, I mentioned it to her, and she said that I would be surprised at the number of times she's heard people say that have had an encounter that was relatively close. So somehow we were on the same frequency, I guess.
When we drop your episode, I'll put that picture out on our group page. It's kind of hard to see with the green. I've got a green screen, but you can see the shape.
It kind of blends in.
You can see the shape of them anyway. That looks better when I put it in front of me. But yeah, I'll post it out there when we drop your episode.
So that sighting is what launched me into becoming really interested in finding out what other people are experiencing. Sort of like that day that I spent in the library in San Francisco. I was motivated. I had lots of help. And so I started looking on the internet, and I called a friend of mine, Larry Turner, who lives in Oregon. He's a researcher, and you can find him on podcasts and all kinds of things. Believe it or not, I met Larry. We were taking a Reiki class together, so it had nothing to do with Bigfoot.
Nice.
But that came up. I'm a Reiki master teacher now, by the way. If anybody needs that service, please reach out. I'd be very happy to help you.
Cool.
Thank you. So I called Larry and said, dude, I just saw a Bigfoot. And he goes, cool. What'd you see? Boy, did I like that reaction.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So I told him what I saw, and he goes, I couldn't quite figure out how far away it was, and I had been back and taken pictures of the area. He's the one that helped me figure out it was only about 25 yards from where we were on the road, based on the photographs that I sent him. But he put me in touch. I says, do you know somebody? The reason I called him was to see if he knew somebody out here that I could report this to. Because my first thought was protect the animal. So I need to report this to somebody who can do that, or is doing that, or just that was what I knew that I needed to do. So he put me in touch with Ken Gerhardt. Ken called me back a few days later, and I was able to tell him that whole story. He referred to me as a credible witness, which was nice to hear, and asked me a question. He told me he's been doing this work for 40 years or longer, however long he's been doing it. And he wanted to know why I have seen so many things that relate to Sasquatch. He, after all this time, has still not seen one with his own eyes. And I said, well, maybe you have to be in the right place at the right time in the right frame of mind. So perhaps that's true. I may have been a bit flippant when I said that, but now that I know what I know now, I think that could be true. Again, I don't know. I just know what I saw and what I felt about what I saw. The very last thing I want to tell you about was back up on the Olympic Peninsula, and this happened recently in March of this year, 2023. My mother turned 95, and a bunch of us made a trek up to celebrate her birthday and enjoying being back in the mountains, back what felt like home for me. I hated to leave. But I was with my family, my daughter and son-in-law and 3 grandchildren, whom I live with now, as I said. We were headed for the airport, for SeaTac Airport from the Olympic Peninsula. So we had about a 3-hour drive ahead of us, and it was just barely dawn. It was a frosty morning. We were on 101 heading south on the inside of the peninsula. 101 wraps around the Olympic Peninsula and goes north and south. Headed south towards the turnoff to the Hood Canal Bridge, for those who know the area. And I saw another Bigfoot, and this one blew my mind, I have to say. And I said so quickly. We were in the car. I had a new phone. I had my brand new iPhone 14, and I was messing around with the camera. And then I thought, you know what? I should stop this and just use my eyes to see what I can see. And I would love to see another Bigfoot up here. And that was in my mind. And so I set my phone in my lap and just looked out the windows. And again, a couple minutes later, there he was. And it was on the edge of a clearing. I took a photograph just before that, before I put the camera down. So I was able to at least have a shot of what that area looked like. And it was a private property adjacent to the road, the edge of a clearing. It was beautiful. The sun was coming up, and it was pretty daylight by then, but you could still see the frost on the fields. And what I saw, I have to say, what again blew my mind, it was what looks like the drawings that I've seen online of the biggest of the Sasquatch that are out there. He was enormous. And he was standing on the edge of the clearing. There was a crop of deciduous trees, so no leaves on them. They could have been fruit trees, now that I think about what it looked like. But anyway, the animal that was there was standing in the sun, full view. And it looked to me like he was about 70, 80 yards away. And he looked like he was enjoying the feeling of the sun on his face. He was leaning back like this. And as he made that motion, he reached out his right arm to grab and he put his hand in the crook of the tree very comfortably. And so balancing himself, I suppose. And I was stunned at how long his arm was. And I did an intake of breath when I saw it. And my kids are like, what? What did you see? And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're past. We can't turn around. We're on a deadline. I just saw something that took my breath away. It was beautiful. I'll tell you about it later. And so I lived with the thought of that for quite some time. And the only thing that I thought, 2 things about it. First of all, you can't take away. You know what you saw. But it was so perfect and it was so clear to me that I wondered if somebody had a cutout like that there. It knew we were there, but it didn't care. This might sound crazy, but whatever. I could live with that. I've been called worse. And I felt really blessed, actually, for being gifted with that view that's now like a snapshot in my head. And I may have to reach out to my dear friend Sibylla and ask her to draw that for me. And for those that are listening to this podcast, if you know someone who is an artist, or if you're an artist yourself and you see something like this, try to draw it, try to get it drawn, because it sticks in your head for too long. It can consume you because it's so different from the norm. And until you become familiar with that feeling and feel safe around it, you might just need that kind of help. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Those are awesome encounters.
Wow, that was incredible.
Yeah, and you tell them very well, by the way. You have a great speaking voice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Got a great memory.
Yeah, definitely.
Not bad for a 70-year-old broad, hey?
I was going to say before I ask the question, it seems like people like me and Brian who go out looking for Bigfoot, they're never the ones that see him. It's people like you who are just doing your thing that see these things. Do you think you have a connection with these creatures?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes.
See, I was thinking that same thing. I think you're more in tune with, you seem to be more in tune with the natural world around you. Like you grew up
Yeah.
more in it than most people.
When I was a kid, we lived in the country and in Spokane, and city was coming up behind us, but in front of us there was horse fields and pastures, and we lived on a gravel road. I used to race my brothers barefoot on the gravel. I used to win. But my happy place was in the woods up the road from where we lived. I'd walk off the road and sit on a big lava boulder that was there. There was an old lava flow, and just soak up what was going on in the forest. And I've always been like that. So maybe so. Maybe I'm skimming along on the edge of the frequency that Sasquatch can communicate on. I've heard people tell stories that are gifted and well-known, actually, psychics who have had a personal experience in connecting with Sasquatch clairvoyantly. And so I will never say that I have that kind of a gift. But I guess I'm what they call clairscient, whatever it is. You feel stuff. So when something's going on, the hair on my arm stands straight up. And I know. Now I have to tell you, my daughter is clairvoyant. She talks to dead people.
Okay.
Wow. We need to get her on the show.
Yeah, definitely. You think she'd come on and talk to us?
I'll ask her if she's willing to do that.
We'd like to hear her encounter too.
Her encounter was very brief, but I think that she would be able to tell you a little bit about it. I'll ask her if that's something that she would like to do. But growing up with me, who knows, she might have some stories.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, maybe I better quiz her. I want her to tell us.
Right.
So back to the Yosemite Park. You heard them talking or chattering. Have you ever heard the Sierra sounds before?
Yeah, and only recently did I listen to them again with that in mind, because I was thinking, those people, we heard it, maybe, I don't know, let's go find out. So, yes, and I listened to them 2 or 3 times right then. And I think that's what I heard.
Similar.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when you said that. I was like, Sierras.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And 74, wasn't that about the time that Moorhead was able to grab that shot?
I think it was around that, early 70s.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was also near the same area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder, too, if that museum that had that mummy, I just wonder if it was real, how they got it.
Me too.
Idaho.
I heard Coeur d'Alene in Idaho is beautiful. I'm just saying, to get a Bigfoot would be extremely hard to do, unless they just happen to come across it dead somewhere, which is also another hard thing to do. I think these things take care of their own and bury their own or something.
Yeah.
There was a story somewhere back in the late 50s, I think, about a wild boy that was caught by 2 men who were working the railroad, and they saw it run across the tracks and captured him.
I remember hearing that too. I think it tried to climb up a cliff or couldn't get away or something, was kind of trapped in an area, and they ended up catching it. Yeah.
And I wonder if it was if it was him.
How big was do you remember how long it was laying there?
No. Well, yeah. It was child size. It was like an older child, say 12-year-old.
Yeah.
We're guessing, but isn't there a scientist? Is it Jeff Meldrum?
Yeah.
Is that his name? That's from Idaho, or
Yes.
is that the university?
Idaho State, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know if he's ever heard about this.
Yeah, we'd like to talk to him. We're going to get him on the show someday. That's kind of
one of these days we'll try. He's our white whale.
Yeah.
Well, cross our fingers.
Right.
So I got to ask, the bear, was it a black bear or was it a brown bear?
Oh, in the campground in Yosemite?
Yeah.
It was a black bear.
Okay.
Okay.
The only reason I ask is because, grizzlies, brown bears, they're pretty dangerous. I mean, you guys are pretty
They
brave
are,
to...
And I don't believe that there were any known grizzlies in Yosemite. I don't think they'd come that far down. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But again, there's things out there we don't know about. But it was definitely a black bear.
So of all these encounters that you had, did you ever get a clear view of the face? Could you describe anything of it, or even the mummy?
The mummy that I saw, its skin was dark, very dark, leathery looking. Its face was flattened. Its nose was broad. Its eyes were sunken. It looked like it had, and you have me right now. You can probably tell by the look on my face, looking at the snapshot of my memory here. It had a brow ridge line that was noticeable. Not much hair on its face. I could see its ears, and they were human-like ears that were close to the head. And then lots of hair that was mangy looking.
Did you notice its hands? Were its hands bigger than human hands, or its feet bigger than human feet? I guess for its size.
For its size, I noticed its hands. I didn't. My dad said something about its feet, but I don't remember about that. I do remember seeing its hands, and they looked like my hands.
Well, I tell you what, being from Washington and Oregon area, I don't blame you for missing it and wanting to go back. Brian and I have been there a few times.
Oh, man. Yeah, I love it.
We love it out there. We really do. And any chance we get to go out there, we're going to do it. And Mount Hood.
Every time I leave, I don't want to leave.
Yeah, I don't either. I'd love to talk my wife into moving out there, but she doesn't believe in Bigfoot anyway, so... Are you going to go to the Bigfoot
Museum?
North American Bigfoot Center?
Yes, I am.
You need to talk to Cliff while you're there.
Okay.
If he's there.
Yeah, if he's there.
I definitely plan to make a trip down there and say hello and look around and introduce myself.
Yeah.
Good.
Tell him what happened to you, and he might even have you on his podcast with Bobo.
Him and Bobo. Yeah.
Bobo. Now that would be a trip and a half.
Yeah. Have you watched those shows, the Finding Bigfoot shows? You know what we're talking about? Yeah. So that's where Cliff's at. Yeah, that's a really hot spot area right there.
The place that I'm staying is a historic property that belongs to an organization that protects the Cascade region when it comes to Native American history. Once a year, we used to hold a Sasquatch, what do we call it? Salmon, mushroom, and Bigfoot festival.
Cool.
Nice. That sounds like fun.
on this property. But otherwise, there isn't much going on there. And there is a meadow there that has been nicknamed Bigfoot Meadow, where footprints of a young Sasquatch were taken years ago.
Okay.
And, so yeah, I'd love to meet with him. My reason for going there is to get away from it all, and I've been promising my kids for years that I would begin to write my story.
I was just going to ask, have you ever thought about writing a book?
That's where I'm starting. Before I leave, I'm studying right now. I'm taking an online course in how to get started writing your memoirs. And once I hit the road, I'll begin.
We will look for that because I love books.
Please pray that my car holds out.
You'll be fine. I just know
Yep.
you'll be fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you get that book done, we'll be happy to read it and put it out on our group for you and help you promote it if you want. So,
thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You've just boosted my courage.
Good. I think you should. I thought about that as you're telling your story. I think you said you're not an artist, but I really think you should document and put that down on paper.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, thank you. That is the pep talk I needed.
You would know
good.
just as much as anybody. I mean, you've seen 3 of them, so
Okay.
We want to thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been great and a pleasure having you on, Robyn. You did an awesome job.
Those were great encounters. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's so good to meet you both. I hope that I meet you in person one day.
We do too.
We do too.
We'll try to do that sometime. Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Take care and God bless.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you, Robyn. You too.
Bye.
I like that theory about the mummy being the juvenile, and then how she was talking about that. I've heard that story before of the 50s where the train car guys captured one, or something happened where it couldn't get away. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it was injured, something to that effect. But I've heard that story before, and it makes sense. That very well could have been.
Maybe that was it.
Mummified juvenile Bigfoot.
Could have been.
Know.
Sure.
But like I said, I'm sure that thing's long gone by now.
Oh, yeah.
Tucked away. It's in the basement of the Smithsonian. That's what we're...
Or some guy's basement in Idaho. Who knows?
Could be that, maybe. Hey, if
You
you're out
never
there
know.
and listening and you got the Bigfoot mummy, or somebody else who's had the
Let
mummy,
us know.
if you've seen it. And seriously, if you've seen the thing, and like Robyn did, or if you guys know of someone who has, reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah, for sure.
We'd like to hear about it, and
Heck yeah, we would.
relay it back to her. I'm sure she'd like to hear it too. But
info@cryptidcreatures.co.
yes,
Let us know.
or you can go to our website www.cryptidcreatures.net. Ryan, my friend, it was fun hanging out with you again. This was a great episode.
Oh, always fun, man. Always learning.
Listeners, thanks for listening. We appreciate you as well.
Yes, we do.
With that, we'll get out of here. What do you say?
Yep. See ya.